Aloha, I'm Felicia Miller Johnson, and I conduct work life video interviews with career professionals that become an all intuitive conversation. Aloha, and welcome to another episode of All Intuitive Conversation. Today, I have the pleasure of connecting with Aline. She and I have never spoken before, and so this is my opportunity to get to know her. I will say that I am especially excited because on her LinkedIn profile, she shares about her spiritual side, and you don't find that too often. So let's bring her to the screen. Aloha, Aline.
Hi, Felicia. Thank you for having me here today.
I'm excited. Thank you for being open to having this all intuitive conversation with me. So, like I was saying in the beginning, you and I have never met. However, I've already been encouraged by your presence because, as you say, for a guest to be a show, they have to have a profile on LinkedIn. And I don't go perusing like the whole profile or anything like that. But right away, you have this red, which is my favorite color, and you have the star and the moon image. So I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey as a spiritual healer and speaker and everything. But where are you sitting? Where are you calling in from?
Right now, I am in Spain, in Mallorca. So it's the height heat of summer. I am actually Brazilian, based in Sweden, but I'm never in Sweden and I'm never in Brazil. So here we are.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been in Brazil right now?
So I've been in Spain now for a month.
Spain,
Yeah.
excuse me,
Yeah.
Spain. You're
It's
from
okay.
Brazil, Spain. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So do you have like family, friends there? Like what takes you there?
No, I travel a lot and it's part of my work as a spiritual guide. I just go wherever energy takes me, wherever
Mhm.
spirit wants me to serve, I go. So it's some years are easier than others. Sometimes I just love being around. I'm very connected to the element of air, so it's
Mhm.
very hard for me to stay put. And other times it feels like, oh, it's again need to think about where I'm going next. So the
Yes.
duality of everything in this life. Yeah.
So, totally connecting with that because today I have my incense burning, which is always representative of air. So, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so this spiritual, tell me, how did you get into this career of spirituality? Like,
I yeah. I never thought I was going to work with that.
mm,
I started on this path very early when I was a teenager. I joined my first mystery school when I was only 14 years old.
really?
So this has always been very strong in me, my spiritual path.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, it wasn't a very normal path. It wasn't something I talked to people about. It was my thing. I was born in a household where both of my parents are scientists. It's
Mm-hmm.
not exactly like it was an open field for that. So, I mean, and it's fine. I just kept it for myself. And I went to business school and I worked with business development for many, many years. And
Mm-hmm.
I changed different mystery schools, changing lineages and going deeper into my studies at the same time. I just didn't really talk about it publicly
Mm-hmm.
until my late 20s that I felt I was breaking myself in two. I was not supposed to be a person in the office.
Right.
And so I left that life completely. But
Mm-hmm.
still, I never thought I was going to work as a spiritual guide. I thought I was going to start my own business and continue with my spiritual path. And
Mm-hmm.
I dedicated myself more and more to my own spiritual path until a moment that I actually received a message telling me that I was a spiritual guide.
Mm.
And that is how I started working with this. And it wasn't exactly easy. And it
Mm-hmm.
was at the same time because I received very clear guidance. I had 1 second that I received as if I was reading a full book. The full book
Mm-hmm.
was delivered to me. So you
Mm-hmm.
were mentioning about the color, the red, the sun, and the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Those things I didn't think about, those things I received in that message. They told me the color of your brand is red. Like no softness, no sweetness. We don't need more butterflies. It is red, you know.
Yes.
Yes, like the spirituality is strong. It's not always
It's
soft.
bold. Yes.
Yeah, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
it stand for the strength, for the warrior side. So that came very strong in the message. It's passion, but it's also the warrior. So it's all together, right? It's a good warrior fight with passion.
Yes.
And yeah, the moon and the sun, and even my name, because Ra is the sun and M is a
Yes.
representative of water. The letter M, historically, that's its origin is waves. So it's
Yes.
representing this balance of fire and water at all times.
Hmm.
Yes.
Oh,
So when I got the message,
yeah.
I still struggled with it because I kept thinking, who the hell am I to call myself a spiritual guide? People are going to laugh at me. I never even talked about the stuff that I do. And now I'm going to come out as a spiritual guide. You know, who is this girl? So
Well,
it took me quite a while of my own healing to be able to anchor the message, so to say.
well, it definitely is aligning because the first card that fell out here is this woman that's on. You kept saying path on the path, but
Mhm.
she's got her hand in her head, just kind of struggling. And so I just visualize, like I said, you're on this path, but I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go and do this whole spiritual aspect of this, or struggling with the whole, business side?
Yeah.
And it says here, working too hard, too many hours, the need for balance in life. Let others help you. And but then next card is another two. And he
Mhm.
is balancing on this tightrope in this wave of water, which y'all talked about the seas
Yeah.
just going back and forth. And again, it literally says on here, working too hard or multiple jobs, the need to bring balance and fun into your life, juggling multiple priorities, balancing um, the budget. But that's not what I'm like hearing as far as the budget part is connecting with the whole just balancing this whole spiritual side and this business side in the water, which you just kind of just talked
Yeah.
about. But then the next card that came out here is this young page that seems to have no longer struggling in what I see in the background in the oceans or the wave, but has solidly landed his 2 feet on land. He has decided this is the path I'm going and holding up this whole fire
Yeah.
and light and got the dragon in the back, which is more spiritual, aspect of that. So how was it? Tell me, like, just ask me, take me to that occasion when you finally just did say, okay, this is where I'm going to separate. Tell me about that message that you got. Like,
Mm.
where were you? Were you at work? Were you at home? Like, what was that
When I got the
message? What?
message, I had already left my job and my relationship and my home. So about uh,
Okay.
half a year before, no, maybe no, sorry, 1 year before, I had left everything just to
Mm-hmm.
focus on my spiritual path. And I've always been very dedicated to my path. I do many hours of different practices per day. This is like my main commitment in life. If there is one thing I'm committed to, it's this path. I
Yes.
just never thought I was going to work with it, but I was committed even just for myself.
Yes.
When I got that message, though, I wasn't doing anything. I was hanging on a hammock. It was a full moon day. It was Capricorn full moon day, but it was like
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the afternoon, and I was chilling on the hammock. And out of nowhere, the message came, and I just stood and like, okay, I know what I have to do. I don't know
Hmm.
how I'm gonna do it, but they were very clear. Yeah.
Yes. So it sounds like very similar that in the aspect of what I can relate to as well, in that you thought, okay, I'm just going to do this for myself, my own personal self ascension journey, spiritual awareness, but not necessarily something that you would say, this is what my career or my job is going to be, or how finances will kind of flow
Yeah.
with that. So, how did you balance that? How did you balance saying, okay, this is my spiritual personal side, but now this is also going to be my business as well? Like, how did you
Mm. Well,
navigate that?
I don't really separate it. I see as one thing. Um, One of the reasons why I love doing my job is because I feel I'm just being myself. Like I
Mm,
don't have to do anything but being myself. The messages just come. I just know what to do. It is
yes.
complete alignment. And I don't see myself as having my own business, although I do have my own business. I
Uh-huh.
see I have very clear bosses. Spirit is my boss. The spirit tells me what to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so so that is the way that I see it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just following divine orders, which I love. I do with greatest devotion and pleasure, but that's what I do.
Well, the next one that came by is releasing the ego. And it literally says on the card here, it says the illusion of being trapped, which you are not trapped in this whole lifestyle. It says accepting responsibility for your situation and then making choices. So it's like, okay, make that choice that support your path, because path is very strong with you, like path to happiness. So if that's the case, so tell me, so what is a day like for Aline? Like,
A
because I know
day
you said you a little
for
bit, you just kind of flow and you just kind of go like, what is a day like for Aline?
my day is quite structured actually. I wake
Hmm.
up every day between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. and I do 4 to 5 hours of spiritual practice a day.
Okay,
That's how I
pause.
begin.
Pause. Because I can so relate to that. Like my spirit team wakes me up between the hours usually like of 3 and 5. And you're kind of like, okay, like it's very
Yeah,
quiet, but in the
yeah,
beginning it's like, really? Does it have to be 3 o'clock in
it
in,
does.
in the morning? But now it's just so common. And I'm married, and so I think my husband's just kind of like used to me just being up. I'm like, I'm just just doing my work. So it's interesting that you said that between the 3 and 5, which going back to here balancing, going back to these clocks. That's why he's balancing clocks
Yeah.
between here. So okay, so 3 to 5, you're up and you're kind of doing your spiritual work. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the last time I used an alarm clock in my life. I am literally awakened at this time to do my practices. It's not like I don't see that as struggling. That is part of my responsibilities. I have a commitment to spirit to show up because that is what allows the energy to be that high in me so I can do my job. Like
Mm,
those kind of like gifts that I was given were not given for free and they're not for my entertainment. They are for serving. So I have to
mm.
show up. That is how I see it.
So
Yeah.
have you found that you have deeper connections with spirit? Does it flow easier, or is it like, what have you found since, like say your 20s and when you kind of decided this is your practice? Have you found deeper knowledge growing, or is that just the time?
No, it goes deeper and deeper. Every time I think things cannot get crazier, they just get crazier. It's just like, okay, just keep going.
Okay, so what's an example? You say crazy, but what's an example?
Just our powers. I think just understanding our powers and how we can bend reality and create things and distort things. I just find it amazing. And just the ability to see what's going on around us and everybody around us.
Mm,
Because also, the more we serve, the more we see what people were going through and what kind of help they need. That doesn't mean we have the right to just say that to them or know anything, but we start seeing things so much more, what is going on in multiple dimensions. And yeah,
mhm,
it is quite reality chattering. So,
mhm,
in a way, continuing with the practices is what creates a system that can handle this because things get crazier and crazier.
hmm,
So, with the more practices we do, the more our system is strong to handle that current of energy because light is very powerful.
very.
Like this, the nervous system has to be quite strong to deal with each time the currents being stronger, faster. Like it's a never ending work. There's no limits. We are still in a human body. And to prepare this vessel to
Mhm,
handle this kind of power, it's quite staggering. So
mhm,
there's quite a, it's not only the practices, but all the things that I need to do to take care, like can never drink alcohol or eat things that are too bad for my system or coffee. There are certain things that disconnect us. So it's not
mm,
only about what we do, it's also about what we have to stop doing. Yeah.
stop doing. Okay, so then going back to the whole balance. So how do you balance being human? Because like I've heard the stories as the deeper that people get sometimes in the spiritual realm, it's like they then become more frustrated sometimes with being human. and the things that we
Okay.
have to do, or want to just stay. I just want to stay in my meditative state. I don't want to come back and then have to, like, go to the grocery store and buy groceries, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So is there anything special that you kind of do in order to manage being still a human? Because, I feel as though
Yeah.
we're spiritual beings just having a human experience, but
Yeah.
we are.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I personally don't struggle with that, but I do see a lot of people in this path struggling with that because life
Mm-hmm.
is not easy. Regardless
Mm-hmm.
of where we are on the spiritual path, life can bring a lot of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use anything as escapism. Some people might use social media, scrolling, but we can use spirituality as escapism. We can just lock ourselves in the room to not have to deal with life. Sometimes we're not conscious of what we're using escapisms, but everything can
Mm-hmm.
be an escapism. That said, I have it very ingrained in me that spirituality is practical. It is rooted in
Hmm.
everyday life. It is about living better here now. We are here. We are in physicality. We're not somewhere else. If we didn't need to be in this physicality, we wouldn't be here. And yet we're here. So for me, all these practices we do is just so we can live better. In
Yep.
my case, I just have to do more because my work in this reality is also to help people to heal certain things. And this is just part of my job. So
Ah.
it's like I need to. If you see like what the Dalai Lama do, and of course I'm not comparing myself to him, he's just one inspiration for me. The
Mm-hmm.
Dalai Lama wakes up every day at 3 a.m. and he does hours of practice and then he has breakfast and then he does more practices and studies and then he goes to work. So I do see this
Hmm.
as this is kind of a requirement for this type of work. Like it doesn't matter that he has done this his entire life, he still needs to do it. He cannot just stop it.
Mm. Well, a card that came out here, and it says, "When I connect to the spiritual realm, I open the door to receive divine guidance, clear direction, and great wisdom."
Yeah.
So it's like, yes. And then also what came out is, here it was like this eye in the sun, and it says, "The universe has big plans for me, and it's time to claim them." So doing this work and everything that you've done in spiritual development, tell me, a year from now, what does Aline look like?
Aline helps more people to stay on their path.
Hmm.
And this
How?
means connection so that they don't disconnect from themselves, so they stay true to themselves and live their purpose.
Mm, love that. So somebody's out there and they're like, okay, well, how does Aline do that? Like, what type of clients or individuals would come and connect with you and say, yes, I need her assistance in my life? Tell me about that person.
That person has had spiritual experiences before or is extremely curious and
Mm-hmm.
has a very bright mind. So they
Mm-hmm.
can understand many possibilities, but they're
Mm-hmm.
still having difficulty anchoring certain things in their beings. They're still struggling a lot with themselves in certain ways. Despite
Mm-hmm.
having a beautiful life, they normally have everything that one needs in the
Mm-hmm.
material realm, but they want more. They know that they're not living their purpose. They might have a beautiful life, but they're struggling to keep that. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a sense of something is not as connected as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bigger thing, and I don't know how to access that.
Well, it's interesting because now when I go back and I'm looking at the words, like I said, because it kept just come out working too hard, too many hours, the need for balance in life, working too hard or multiple jobs, the need to
Mhm.
bring balance and fun into your
Yeah.
life, juggling multiple priorities. And so it's kind of like, and then also the illusion of being trapped, accepting responsibility for your situation, and then make choices that will support your path to happiness.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if these are things that those particular individuals may be experiencing, as well, juggling that same difference between the spirituality and the work realm. So, what does, and I'm just using this because it's the term like a lot of people use or can relate to, is coaching. What does coaching look like with you? Is it you work with somebody like for a year, or like you talk with them for An hour? Like, how
Mm.
does your system work?
I have different programs depending for where people are on their path.
Okay.
So I have one program that is only 8 weeks long for
Mm-hmm.
people who haven't had a solid, consistent spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm.
And this program is based on giving them solid foundations for their spiritual development. So this is, yeah, 8 weeks. We meet 5 times. They have 4 modules, and each module has different daily practices. So they will engage in 1 hour of spiritual practice daily.
Mm-hmm.
They will have my support. We will talk and everything. I channel a lot for my clients. I always receive information about them, about
Yes.
their obstacles, about what kind of practices they actually need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is mainly about the practices. It's not about just talking to me. If somebody just talks to me once every 2 weeks, nothing's going to happen. They need to
Mm-hmm.
engage in the daily practices, and that is what shifts their energy. That's what creates the alchemical process. And what I can do for people is giving them the right practices, because
Oh.
many people either change practices too often for the practice to have any effect on their energy field, or don't know when to change practice, or are doing practices that are not the right ones for their obstacles. So that is
Mm-hmm.
why a guide is needed, because a guide will say, no, you're done with this. It's time for this. This is not doing the job anymore. And we can keep updating. So, well, but this was the first program. It's more foundational. Everybody goes through the same practices to establish the foundations. And then I have a second program that is a spiritual mentorship, where then is totally tailor-made practices for the person, totally like just channeling for the person what's going on and doing very specific meditations with the person. And the practices can be all kinds of practices. So in that program, in the mentorship, I never know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Each person has their own thing, but they are required to commit to their practices, whatever they receive.
Mm-hmm.
And in that program, the minimum to work with me, it starts in a 5-time package just to have a taste. But normally
Mm-hmm.
people work much longer with me because this is a long journey. Yeah.
It is like you
That's
said,
sad.
it's a path. Huh?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's sad. It's also a path that we want to empower people. So it's not a path that I want to be working with the same person for 4 or 5 years. I want to slowly fade away and let the person be able to stand on their own feet. Maybe they actually need another teacher after a while. It's not that's very different from when working with business. When we look for like repetitive clients. And
yes,
in this path, it's a little bit, I need a person to empower themselves. They
that
can
part.
keep having contact with me, but meet me less and less. We shouldn't be
Not
meeting always every other week. We should at three
codependent.
weeks, at 4 weeks.
Yes, that is actually one of the things because when it goes back to when we were talking about when I was saying the spirituality piece and then like coaching, coming through traditional coaching, they said, well, what is your package and how long are individuals going to work with you? And I have found for myself struggling with the sense of, okay, I think we're done, but if they've paid for like this other little package, it's just kind of like this is where you go on to the path. And that's when I start using the example of like the Wizard of Oz. And Miss I watch Oz more often. But the witch North. She comes in, Dorothy is like, where am I? And she meets Miss North and she's like, look, you're in Oz, these are the Munchkins. This is who you need to go see. Here are your ruby slippers. Go forth. And so I have found myself to be more of like on the welcoming and kind of getting you settled and grounded. But I'm not necessarily the person that's going to, travel with you for years, down the path. That was just not how I was just meant to serve before. So meeting all
Yeah.
the people that kind of come in, get them settled, and then sending them on to other individuals that will help them on that path. But it was a struggle, let's talk about this in the beginning of figuring that out because you're connected to what the old coaching paradigms are saying that it has to be this or have to be that. And it's like I don't want anybody that has to call me every week to for guidance. It's like no, that I don't want you dependent on me. That's not what I want at
Yeah.
all. But I want you to be able to ascend but I'm here to support you in the beginning, but you should be growing and ascending on your own. But yeah, that is definitely one of those conflicts for sure, in the beginning of the path. And so finally, I was shuffling a card. I was kind of like, well, it is like this divine feminine energy that Alina is channeling. And Diana, the
Ah.
goddess Diana, came out, which kind of reminds me of you here with this whole glow and the hair color.
Mhm.
And it says, the queen of the wilderness she is. She's the language of the natural world is a frequency of love. This is my mother tongue. And so it was like just feeling that encouragement and the energy and just like, oh yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling for Aline. So thank you so much for coming and having this all intuitive conversation with me. For those individuals that will be like, yes, I need more of that, how can they reach you?
Can reach me on my website, alineram.com. So that's ALINERAM, as you see on the screen.com.
Yes.
And I have a free guide of what is a spiritual growth. So if you would like to understand better what this path is, you can go to alineram.com/spiritual growth. And I love writing. Writing is a huge part of my work to express the messages that I receive. So every
Mm.
week I write an article and I send it over to my newsletter. Every Tuesday, a new article on what is coming through me. And you can sign up for that for free at alinerem.com/subscribe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you
much for
sharing.
having me.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are interested in saying, hey, I would like to be a guest on All Intuitive Conversation, just send me a message here on LinkedIn. If you're not seeing this on LinkedIn, just go to All Intuitive Conversation. And until we meet again, this
Thank
has
you.
been an All Intuitive Conversation.